First graders, good Monday morning. Thank you for tuning in. Summer vacation is like practically here. Some of you have probably already felt like it's summer vacation, being done with your spelling tests, and I bet a lot of you have finished your packets, so that's awesome. I was looking through my library this morning, my personal library. My son and my daughter actually organized the books, and they found a lot of books under their beds and stuff because we've been really getting on them about cleaning their rooms. Well, guess what book I found from a series? Bailey School Kids. And this one is perfect because it's Werewolves Don't Go to Summer Camp. So it's a summer themed Bailey School Kids book. This is going to be the last book I'm going to read to you guys. There's 13 chapters. I'm going to get into this, and you can look at the cover while I read the back. There are some pretty weird grown-ups living in Bailey City. But could the hairy camp director really be a werewolf? The Bailey School Kids are going to find out. Here we go. I'm excited for this one. I'm just so surprised that we had this one. I had no idea. Number 1, Chapter 1, The New Camp. I'm scared, Lisa whispered. Melody rolled her brown eyes. Camp won't be so bad. A new summer camp had been formed close to Bailey City. All the parents thought the week-long camping program was a great idea, and practically every kid from the 2nd and 3rd grades at Bailey Elementary School had been signed up for the first session. They were all on the big green bus taking them to the camp. What's the worst thing that could happen? Howie's face peered over the seat in front of them. Lisa's eyes got wide. I could get lost in the woods and be eaten by wild animals. Only if we're lucky, Eddie teased from the seat behind them. Melody ignored him. Don't worry, Lisa. There aren't any wild animals around here. And if you get lost in the woods, I'll make everyone look for you no matter how long it takes. But what if we both get lost together? Lisa asked. Don't be silly. I'm not going to get lost anywhere. Melody squeezed her legs together. She had needed to go to the bathroom ever since they left the school parking lot. I hate it when that happens. There was a bathroom on the bus, but Melody didn't want to use it. Lisa tapped Melody in the arm. I'm car sick. Well, don't puke on me. Eddie pulled his t-shirt over his red curly hair. Melody felt a little sick herself, but she'd seen Lisa throw up on too many school trips to ignore her. Stick your head out the window and you'll feel better, Melody said quickly. Lisa had just poked her head out the window when she hollered, I see the sign for camp! We're almost there! Thank goodness, Melody said. She wasn't thrilled about going to camp either, but at the moment, there was nothing that would make her happier than a non-moving bathroom. All the kids strained to read the sign as the bus pulled onto the gravel driveway. It read, Welcome to Camp Lone Wolf. Chapter 2, Mr. Jenkins. Eddie was out the door of the bus almost before the wheels stopped moving. He never could wait for anything. All the other kids piled out after him, but not Melody or Lisa. Come on, Lisa, Melody urged. I've got to go. I'm scared, Lisa whined. I've never been here before. None of us have, Melody snapped. It's a brand new camp. What if the camp counselors are mean? For all we know, they could be escaped convicts. Melody rolled her eyes. Well, you can stay here all day if you want. But I have to go, and I'm going now. With that, she grabbed her blue Bailey School gym bag and headed for the door. Lisa sure did not want to be alone, so she clutched her gym bag and followed Melody. All right, you city slickers, boomed the loudest voice they'd ever heard. I better get louder. Line up against that bus and listen for your cabin assignments. But sir, Melody raised her hand, You need to listen now. Button up, growled the man. Howie pulled Melody back against the bus. Shh! This guy means business. I'm going to do some business if he doesn't hurry, Melody said through her clenched teeth. My name is Mr. Jenkins, the man interrupted. His voice was loud enough for their parents to hear back in Bailey City. I'm your camp director, so if you need anything, let me know. I need to go to the bathroom, Melody hissed under her breath. Where'd they find this nut? Howie whispered. He's probably a reject from the Marine Corps, Eddie said. Yeah, a berserk drill sergeant, snapped Melody. Howie nodded. He is wearing dog tags. Shh, Lisa warned, but it was too late. Mr. Jenkins turned and glared in their directions. No talking in the ranks, he bellowed as he scratched his black beard, causing the tags around his neck to jingle. Anyone who doesn't want to hear their cabin assignment can sleep outside with the wolves. Something about Mr. Jenkins made you listen to him. He was at least 6.5 feet tall and looked like a professional football player. Picture? His brown Camp Lone Wolf t-shirt was tight across his huge chest, and the silver dog tags hung from his thick neck. He had the kind of arms that could break a kid in half like a toothpick. His blue jeans were faded to almost white, and he wore no shoes even though it was a chilly afternoon. But the thing that the kids noticed most was his hair. Mr. Jenkins had hair everywhere. There was enough hair on his head for 3 people, and his thick beard would have made 5 bald men happy. Even his arms were covered with a forest of black hair. Everyone quieted down as he called out the cabin assignments. Eddie and Howie ended up together in cabin Silver Wolf, along with 6 other boys from Bailey City. Luckily, Melody and Lisa were both put in Cabin Grey Wolf. Melody rushed ahead of the other girls and made it to the bathroom just in time. When Melody came out of the bathroom, the other girls had already picked out their beds. The only one left was the bunk over Lisa's. Lisa, I'll trade you, Melody said. No, I can't sleep that high. I'd get sick and throw up all over you. Some choice, Melody complained. Either I sleep in the nosebleed section or I get puked on. After everybody settled in their cabins, it was time for dinner. What is it with puke in this book so far? Gross. Ugh. Mr. Jenkins was grilling hamburgers outside. Howie and Eddie put their plates on the picnic table and sat down next to Lisa and Melody. What is wrong with you? Howie asked Melody. Twitter brain there is making me sleep on the top bunk. Melody glared at Lisa. Whoop. I'll probably fall off and break my neck. But I don't like the top bunk, Lisa whined. It makes me sick to look over the edge. I like the top bunk, Howie told Melody. I think it'll be fun. I think it'd be more fun to go home and get out of this place, mumbled Eddie, with his mouth full of cold hamburger. Yuck, these aren't even cooked. Eddie squeezed his hamburger. Red juice oozed onto the plate, leaving a puddle. Just needs to be microwaved. Ew, that looks like blood, Lisa gulped. I can't eat raw meat, Howie exclaimed. I'm going to see if Mr. Jenkins will cook mine a little longer. The rest of the kids agreed. They all carried their rare beef to where Mr. Jenkins was grilling more hamburgers. Excuse me, Howie said softly, but our burgers aren't quite done. Mr. Jenkins glanced at the juicy beef and licked his lips. Looks done to me, he said. I like my meat rare. He grabbed Lisa's burger from her plate and took a huge bite. Juice oozed from the corners of his mouth and dripped down his black beard. Nothing wrong with the meat, he said, licking the juice with his tongue. Ew. Here he is. Howie, Lisa, and Melody went back to their seats without saying a word. None of them felt hungry anymore. Even Eddie, who usually made a smart remark about everything, was quiet as he sat down. I think Mr. Jenkins is strange, Howie said. Eddie nodded. Anybody who eats raw meat must be part animal. He's hairy enough to be an animal, Lisa said. Melody laughed. He has more hair than a wolf in winter. Maybe he is a wolf, Lisa giggled. Yeah, a werewolf, Eddie nodded. Oh, there are no such things as werewolves, Howie said. Sure there are, Eddie teased. I bet Mr. Jenkins is one, and he comes out at midnight for his snack. He likes to eat raw campers. Especially ones named Lisa. Quit it, Eddie, Melody fussed. You're scaring Lisa. A flea could scare her, Eddie laughed. It could not. Besides, werewolves aren't for real, Lisa said. Are they? Chapter 3. The Legend. This is creepy, Lisa said. It's already getting dark. Melody sighed. You think a bright day was creepy. The counselors and campers were sitting around a huge campfire. That is, all of the counselors but one. Mr. Jenkins sat back a little from the fire. In the fading light, Melody could barely make out their camp director's Camp Lone Wolf t-shirt and his hairy face. It was hard to believe he still wasn't wearing shoes, even though it was a bone-chilling night. What's wrong with Mr. Jenkins anyway, Melody asked. Why isn't he sitting with everyone else? He is kind of weird, Lisa agreed. From the way he acts, you'd think he was afraid of the fire instead of the dark. Just then, Mr. Jenkins began to speak. This is your first night at Camp Lone Wolf, and I suppose some of you might be homesick. But we'll have no crybabies at this camp. His big toothy grin sent chills up all the campers' backs. Lisa shuddered. He sure is mean. Shh, whispered Melody. Mr. Jenkins glared at them. His eyes gleamed from the firelight. By the end of this week, you'll be experienced campers able to take care of yourselves in the wilderness. Eddie never did know when to be quiet. But Mr. Jenkins, we don't need to know how to live in the wilderness. We all come from Bailey City. Mr. Jenkins scratched his thick black beard. You never can tell when a little kid like you might get stranded. In the woods. Eddie didn't say another word as Mr. Jenkins continued. There's a local legend about just such a boy who wandered away from a campfire. Here he is telling the story. He looks a little creepy in this picture. All right. Was it at this camp? Howie asked. No, it was long ago, even before Bailey City was founded. The boy's family was moving west. They were camping in this area when he strayed from the campsite. They searched for that boy for 3 weeks. But they never did find nor hear from him. He simply disappeared into thin air, except for... ... Except for what? Lisa squeaked. Mr. Jenkins glanced at the faces around the campfire. Well, it's probably only a coincidence, but ever since he disappeared, the howling of a lone wolf can be heard in these woods. A howling that had never been heard before. Lisa dug her fingernails into Melody's arm. Did the wolf eat the boy? She asked. Mr. Jenkins slowly shook his head. No one knows. But on certain nights, especially when there's a full moon, that wolf can still be heard. That's how this camp got its name. A few kids looked up nervously. The sky had suddenly darkened as heavy clouds covered the nearly full moon. I bet you're just trying to scare us, Eddie cried. There aren't any wolves around here. Mr. Jenkins scratched his beard and stared at Eddie. If you're so sure, why don't you sleep outside tonight? The rest of you better head for your bunk beds. Sleep well, if you can. One of the camp counselors covered the flames with dirt while the campers headed to their cabins. Are you going to do it? Howie asked Eddie. Are you going to sleep outside? Nah, Mr. Jenkins is just trying to scare us, Eddie said. Why would a grown man try to scare a bunch of kids? Lisa asked. Because he's a wolf, Melody whispered. I bet he's a werewolf. They all jumped as a flash of lightning streaked across the sky, and thunder rumbled in the distance. By the time everyone arrived at their cabins, they were soaking wet. Gee, it's really coming down in the buckets, Eddie sputtered. Howie dumped water out of his sneakers. It is a good thing you don't have to sleep outside tonight. Sleeping outside doesn't scare me, Eddie boasted. What about the wolf? Howie asked. Eddie stretched out on his bunk. You don't believe that stupid legend, do ya? I don't know. Mr. Jenkins is awfully hairy. He just might be a werewolf. Eddie rolled his eyes. There are no werewolves around here. There's no wolves around here. And there's no such thing as a werewolf. Well, if you're so sure, why don't you sleep outside like Mr. Jenkins said? In this rain? Eddie gasped. I'd drown. Then do it tomorrow night, Howie dared. If you're really not scared, you will. I'm not scared, Eddie declared. I'll do it. Huge bolts of lightning cut through the night sky and thunder boomed. Eddie and Howie both jumped as the lights flickered, then went dead. With the lights out, there wasn't much anybody could do but go to sleep. The cabin counselor lit lanterns while everybody put on their pajamas. Over in Cabin Grey Wolf, the girls got ready for bed by lantern light too. When all the girls were in their bunks and the lanterns were turned out, the girls found out what dark really was. Melody couldn't even see her hand in front of her face until there was a flash of lightning. She was just starting to get drowsy when Lisa whispered her name. Melody, can I sleep with you? I thought you were scared of the top bunk, Melody said in the darkness. Lisa hoisted herself onto Melody's bed. Please, I'm more scared of the dark. Oh, all right, Melody sighed. Squeezed over to one side of the tiny bed as Lisa snuggled down under the covers. Melody was too crowded to sleep, so she stared out the window beside her bed. A lantern from another cabin cast an eerie glow on the nearby trees. Thunder rumbled in the distance. The rain pounding on the roof nearly put her to sleep. Melody's eyes shot open just as a bolt of lightning cut through the sky. The light was so bright, she could see the hunched figure of a hairy beast dashing into the woods. Melody grabbed Lisa's arm. Did you see that? Leave me alone, Lisa muttered. I'm trying to sleep. Lisa! Melody cried as she shook her friend. I saw it! Saw what? Lisa mumbled sleepily. The wolf! Melody whispered into the darkness. I saw the lone wolf, and it was wearing dog tags. That's it for today, first graders. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you have a great day. My plan today, I'm going to try to get my hair cut today. You'll know tomorrow morning if I got a haircut or not, because it is long. I hope you had a great weekend. I had a pretty good weekend. Barbecued. What else? Watched some movies. Hung out around the house. It was raining a lot, so there's only so much I could do outside. Pulled some weeds last night. That's about it. Yeah. Hope you had a good weekend. Thanks for tuning in. I will see you tomorrow.